Welcome to Herself Reclaimed. I'm Jennifer Soames, an integrative health and capacity coach, helping women rebuild their energy and capacity so they can make effective decisions, set stronger boundaries, and create sustainable success in life and in business. Today, I'm joined by Leah Fritz Johnson. Let me share a little bit about her and then we'll get right into our conversation. Leah Fritz Johnson is the Chief Financial Muse of Transcend Financial Group, and she's not your typical financial planner. Known for making money feel human instead of heavy, she works at the intersection of numbers, behavior, and life. She helps women replace financial anxiety with systems that actually support their energy and leadership. And she's here to prove that financial conversations don't have to be scary or boring, which you'll definitely learn that today. So let me bring Leah in here. Welcome, Leah. It is so wonderful to have you here today.
It's wonderful to be here. I'm excited.
Thank you so much. And full disclosure, I am a client of Leah's and I have been for quite some time, which is why I know she's such an expert in her field. She's taught me a lot, helped me shift some of my limiting beliefs around money, and definitely busted some misunderstandings that I had about wealth and financial planning. And I hope you'll experience the same with our conversation today. I'm so excited to dive in.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to dive in as well.
So, as you know, and for those of you listening who may be new, preventing burnout is the focus of my work with women entrepreneurs. And many of our viewers and listeners want to avoid sliding down that slippery slope. I know I've experienced a lot of anxiety and overwhelm around money, especially when I had my first career and business. And so, Leah, many intuitive women entrepreneurs avoid looking closely at their finances because it brings up anxiety or a sense of overwhelm. From your experience, what's the most common fear you see underneath that avoidance?
That is a really good question. That's also a loaded question. So I would say the most, especially for women and women entrepreneurs, I would say the biggest fear is losing that sense of perfectionism, to be honest. A lot of people think I have to get it right before I do anything. It has to be a certain way. Otherwise, I'll never get to the level that I want to get to. And that actually ends up becoming what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So they actually end up becoming the obstacle that creates the outcome that they're scared of getting. So a lot of times what I do with clients in the beginning, and this is something that I've been developing for the past decade, is taking finances, which is a language, it's math is a language, right? It's universal language,
Absolutely.
and teaching these women how to interpret that language for themselves and then build systems around that to help them get to their goals because then they can have all the fear back here, but it doesn't become an obstacle because the system is in control versus the emotion, right? And then we
Mm,
can work on the behavior, we can work on busting through those emotions and turning them into opportunities for them to skip ahead, right?
yeah.
So yes, I would say
Yeah.
that's the biggest one, is the perfectionism piece.
And as a recovering perfectionist, and trust me, it's something that I am constantly letting go of. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because it is something that I do see a lot in a lot of other women entrepreneurs that I speak with. Because there is this like, I have to get it right before I start.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right that that is a self fulfilling prophecy as a form of self sabotage
Mm-hmm.
because we can think, oh, I need to have everything in place and then execute.
Mm-hmm.
But really, that just holds us back and keeps us stuck.
Well, and to add to that, if you don't mind, it's the perfectionism is kind of the top of the iceberg. Underneath that iceberg that creates the perfectionism is the fear of judgment,
Mm,
because we are so hard on ourselves, especially as women. We're so critical on like we have to look a certain way and get certain validation and feedback from those around us to feel like we're not imposters in our role. And finance is a huge area of imposterism for women, especially because of what's been taught to us from generations past. And so we tend to try an approach of I have to present myself a certain way to get a certain validation to feel like this is real. Therefore, my outcome can be real, right? And then it shows up as that perfectionism. So that's
Absolutely.
another thing too, is helping them overcome that judgment and getting in more aligned with a balanced sense of self to then
Hmm.
approach finances with.
And I think a lot of it is self-judgment. There is I think fear around what are other people going to think of me, especially when I am generating good income.
Hmm.
There's the fear of success, of like what will people think of me? How will that change me? Will it change me? Who am I with money or without money? And then it's really that self-examination of how do I feel about myself with
Hmm.
all of that?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
management of it all too. Because
Hmm.
remember, women manage so much more than people really care to recognize. And success
Yes,
comes with its whole own mountain of things that have to be handled that we're like, can I do all of that on my own? And they forget that you can delegate, right? Because we're not used to delegating. We're used to just saying, I'll deal with it. I'll deal with it. I'll take care of it, right? So
absolutely.
that's a whole other thing too, leap of faith, if you will.
Yeah. And like you said, you have systems in place that you work with your clients on so that it takes some of that load off so that they
Yeah,
don't have to manage everything maybe quite so much and that they have some energy and space to, do whatever else they want.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and there is so much emotional charge around money because you mentioned kind of that separation. And that is more and more important that I'm seeing for myself and just for all of us women entrepreneurs is because yeah, it's like we attach our own worth to the money that we make and it's not a direct correlation because everybody has inherent value and everybody is valuable in the work that they do. And yet, when we can distance ourselves from that emotion and, like you said, like just speak a different language and just look at numbers as data. I know we both like data.
Yep.
And if we can just look at data without the emotion, it just makes the experience so much less overwhelming. And all of that just anxiety, the fear, the perfectionism can just take a step back.
Yep. You get that sigh of relief.
Absolutely. So, when women begin to face their numbers with support, something often shifts emotionally, not just financially. What kind of insight or relief do you see clients experience once they gain real financial clarity?
So it's multiple emotions kind of all at once, which is really fun and exciting to see. Like it brings a whole, first you see the energy shift. Like that's the part I really tune into, which I really enjoy. And then it's like excitement, some fear, but it's a different fear. It's an excitement of the opportunity and a fear of the unknown, but knowing it's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So still excited, still willing to kind of jump in with both feet and full body, if you will. And then again, like we were just talking about, it's that like full physical body release of the stress because so much of the misinformation and the misbelief, if you will, is gone and it's replaced with what's real and objective and obtainable and sustainable. So now things that felt like a pipe dream are now reality with a target date, right? With the target date of the result. And now they know I can actually do that. And I can probably do it faster than what my target date is, but I'm going to still keep my target date there as a buffer just to, again, not feel rushed and get the full experience because they're also excited about what they're going to learn on the journey now instead of fear of making a mistake. They're doing what I call fail forward. So you're going to
Mm-hmm.
make mistakes. We already know that. We accept it as fact, but we're going to make those springboards of getting to the milestone. Like we build it in. We know they're going to be there, right? So let's utilize them. Let's make them actually productive little members of our journey, if you will. And that then takes away that anxiety piece that makes people kind of paralysis by analysis, if you will, right?
Yeah,
So they actually want to take action now. And that's the big win is it's no longer talking about it, it's now actually doing it.
absolutely. I know that's been my own experience. Like the more that I have learned from you, the
Oh,
more it has made me like there's still a bit of that trepidation of like, okay, like moving forward. But like you said, it's a different kind of fear. It's that excitement of trying something new and the possibility that you can actually create your dream.
Yeah.
And it's not about the fear of not knowing what to do, or the fear that it's exposing something about you in some way, or that you're not
Yeah.
worthy, or all the other things that we have around money. And when you begin to face those parts of you that aren't aligned with how you feel or you want your life to look, like that's when things begin to shift. Like in my work, because it is a neuroscience based thing, and you and I are both all over neuroscience.
Yeah.
But it's because when there is a misalignment and incongruency between how you feel and what you envision, then there's that's not going to happen.
Yep.
So like you need the data, but you also need the mindset shift to close that gap.
Absolutely. Well, and you said something, and then my brain farted out for a second. um, oh, it's also when they get that clarity, like you just were talking about the judgment piece again, because that comes up so much around finances, is when they finally get that clarity and that excitement shift, that full body experience shift in the behavior, the mindset, and the belief. It's also a fresh start. Like you said, it's something new, but it's something new that's positive, where they truly can let go if they need to and want to of what was. So it doesn't
Yeah.
follow them. And that experience of probably judgment and things that they had doesn't have to continue forward. Like now they actually have something to replace it with, right? It's kind of like the Indiana Jones, weight thing. It's like they can take it and
Yeah.
go, that goes away and this is going to take its place. And so
Exactly.
that's what I always look forward to, is the true release of what was and a true embrace of what is going to be. And it's not even what could be, it's what's going to be, because they're going to do the different things. They're going to achieve new milestones. And even if those milestones are not what they planned for, it'll be what they need, right? To
Mm-hmm.
then get to the next thing.
Absolutely. I love that Indiana Jones analogy with, yeah, like the replacing the sandbag with the treasure. Because it's even like what we do with our brains when we develop new belief patterns, new thought patterns, but also new behavior and new identities, as I've experienced with rewiring my brain, is that you literally replace those old neural pathways with new ones. And so it's the same thing. It's like the macro and the micro of like we can do this in our brains. We can also do this in our lives with actual money and our wealth, and really begin to let go of all the things that have been so we can actually focus on creating what we actually want in our lives.
Yes, I love it.
And for entrepreneurs with nonlinear or seasonal income, traditional financial advice can feel mismatched or exhausting. What
Mhm.
are the biggest blind spots you see for these women, and how can financial systems be designed to support energy and sustainability rather than drain it?
So I love this question. So if you look at traditional financial planning, your question is actually absolutely correct. It is mismatched and exhausting because the industry itself, and this is something that I go deep into in consultation conversations with who I work with. Uh, the traditional financial system is basically set up to fail for
Mm,
most people, but especially seasonal workers, because they don't fit the mold. They don't fit the cookie cutter that they just slam everybody into for their transactional sales kind of approach. So for my firm and what I do with people and what I develop specifically is seasonal and nonlinear income is actually great. I love working with those people. I've actually found those are some of my best clients because
oh,
they
really?
understand we only have a set window to make things happen. So they are all about systems, because systems are what keep them consistent, right? So that they can actually sustain that seasonal income and that nonlinear income without the stress. And the systems also allow them to predict, like they can be preventative versus reactionary with their finances. They can look ahead and go, ooh, I know I'm going to get a lull here, so I need to do this back here to fill in that gap, right?
Sure.
Um, And so it's all about finding financial professionals that are willing to slow down, put the transactional piece further down the road of a conversation, and actually talk about the systems piece first. That's the big key for that, which traditional financial planning is not built for that at all,
Mm-hmm.
which is why they
Yeah.
get that result.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you've got ways to work with people on that because, yeah, there are some people who, maybe you do work in even like holiday craft things, right? Like you have a very finite time where that's going to be really lucrative for you during the year. So having systems in place to set you up for sustainable success is going to make all the difference. And, ladies listening, you want sustainable success in your business and your life. And here on this channel, we've talked about AI systems for sustainability. We've talked about hormones and metabolism for longevity, and now financial systems. And I work with clients in their nervous systems. And while these may not initially seem interconnected, they are.
Mhm.
So, how are these connected or not in your own life? And speaking of intersections, Leah, you work at the intersection of money, behavior, and life context.
Mhm.
Can you share an example of how changing a woman's relationship with money directly supported her capacity and ability to lead without burning out?
Mm. So if I can ask you a question back, can
Sure.
you expand on specifically kind of what you're getting to within that question? Because I could go many, many, many directions with my answer, depending on.
Yeah. I'm thinking for someone like you or me who's working on scaling up their business and maybe she has some limiting beliefs around money, maybe some misunderstandings about managing money and how changing those things led to some kind of positive outcome that gave her the ability to just keep moving forward but without exhausting her. Does that help?
Yep, that does. So you said something kind of in between bridging the last question and this one that plays into this question. So you talked about, AI and, hormones and your nervous system and money and all of these things. And I recently learned a new term that I have been obsessing over for like the past 2 months, and that's polymath. Are you
Ah,
familiar with
yes.
polymath?
Just a little bit. And I
Okay.
think it's because you told me about it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So essentially, what I've learned is polymath is the ability to take seemingly unrelated topics and finding ways on how they all connect. And so, as far as women's relationship with money directly supporting their capacity, I have learned that my secret sauce that I didn't even realize what it was really taking that polymath approach to it. Because, as you said, your AI systems for sustainability, with your health sustainability, with your nervous system, with your money, they all interconnect and they all play off of each other. And so, when one feels a bit burnt out, exhausting, you can actually go and reroute through some of the other ones to actually refresh this one. Like they're all connected. And
Mm-hmm.
so I know with my clients, especially my women clients, it's actually getting them in tune with the fact that all of these seemingly unrelated topics actually all still funnel back into their money, their business, their success, and how to play off of each one when one is feeling a little too heavy and the other ones are a little lighter and they can actually get some relief there to then actually fix this one over here. So I don't know if that's completely answering your question, but I would say that's how I've been able to get people outside of burnout and more into resilience
Yeah.
around
And
when
just
things get heavy.
pointing those things out, right? Because it's the awareness at the heart and center, and even in my process model, and the one that I learned from Duke as I earned my coaching certification, is that awareness, mindful awareness, is at the heart and center of everything. And
Mhm.
if we're not aware of those things that are draining us, whether it's technology, whether it's health related things, whether it's money, like it's going to have an impact somewhere, right? Because like we don't live in a vacuum
Yep.
in our bodies or in the world. And so, yeah, these things do intersect. And I love that you brought up the what's it called again? The
Polymath.
Polymath, thank you. So, ladies, go check out Polymath if you want to figure out some of these connections. And of course, you'll have the links to contact Leah as well if you want to have more discussion about how your money is related to all these other things in your life.
And it is a
So,
fun rabbit hole to go down, by the way, in
oh, I'm
research
sure.
on that term.
I'm
Just
sure.
to
I'm
tell
sure.
people. Yeah.
And so, many women struggle with guilt around prioritizing profit or financial growth. How
Mhm.
do you help clients reframe profit as something that actually supports well being, freedom, and long term resilience?
Oh gosh, this is another fun one. So profit for people who are, I always go off of, I work with clients who are morally and principally ethical, right? So they are very much in business for the reason business exists, and that is for you to take a skill set that is valuable, right? That you enjoy doing, to then take out to the marketplace and solve a problem of some kind. And this also goes for W-2 employees, by the way. Like, you are taking to a company your value proposition, your skill set, to help them grow or solve a problem they have internally. And so when it comes to guilt around profit, it really is okay. So you're guilty about bringing your skill set and value to the marketplace, right? So it's getting them out of thinking about greedy capitalism mentality, which is really where that comes from, of, oh my God, I'm taking too much from my clients. And it's really an imposter syndrome, right? Am I
Mm-hmm.
giving them enough value to warrant what I am making? So that's really the bottom of the conversation that we have is, okay, well, are you? Like, is what you bring valuable to what you're charging? Are you undercharging, overcharging, charging just right? And if you're overcharging, it's not about reducing that price. It's about you getting your skill set to match the price you're charging. Bring the value up. Don't bring the price down, bring the value up, right? So that you
Mm-hmm.
can then live into that, match it, and then grow from there. So that's what it really comes down to, is getting out of that internal dialogue of imposter syndrome and into recognizing, no, this is what my skill set is, and I'm really, really good at it. And people recognize it because they come to me, and they come to me and engage me in that skill set. And that's how I make money. So that's my contribution to to the business world or the employment world. So that's that conversation that we do to reframe it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I know in my first business, my bodywork practice that I had for 12 years before this career, I it took a long time for me to really kind of own my worth. And even then, I could have likely charged more for the value that my clients got from
Oh,
our work together. And I did feel guilty for a long time because I was like, oh, well, and I did want things to be affordable, right? Because I do want people to have access and not it to be a privileged thing. And at the same time, there's this fine line of charging appropriately for the value that you are putting out into the world. And yet, like, as I've thought about how I'm moving forward with this business, is to also then find ways to give back and to make things accessible to people who may not be able to afford them otherwise. So there are ways to work around those things so that you can still maintain the value and be reimbursed for that value. And at the
yeah,
same time, you can make things accessible in a way that feels aligned with your ethics and values too.
yeah,
So it doesn't have to be like, oh, you have to give up all of that in order to make a profit. Because I think that's where people get caught up. Like you said, there's this like idea that if I make a profit and if I make good money, I'm being greedy.
yeah.
Well, guess what, ladies? You also don't have to keep all of your money.
Great.
You
You
can
can
also
you
give
can
it
turn around
away
and
or like
invest.
invest it in ways that support people or organizations or communities that you want to support that also then come back to you. And so it's a win-win for everybody. And Leah's talked to me about strategies on this, so I know that she can talk with you about that as well.
Well, and also to add in, I mean, we all have that issue internally. Even I do, right? It's I think a natural response to people who are really truly care about how they show up for others and what they bring to the table. I think it's just a natural like fear of, am I bringing enough? Am I doing enough? I'm actually going through this own conversation with myself recently because I've changed things in my business and I'm like, ooh, is that good enough? Is that what is, are people getting the value that I want? And of course they tell you that they are. And I'm like, are you sure? Like you almost want to argue with them. No, you're not. Like, are you sure about that? And it really comes down to what I would say around that piece. I mean, obviously working with professionals that are true advocates for you and are going to have honest and objective conversations with you around how to fix that, but also having like community groups. So networking groups, masterminds are huge, but again, choose them well because it's always easier to help other people overcome that conversation internally. It is a lot harder to do it by yourself, which is why we
Absolutely.
all have it, right?
Yes. And as an entrepreneur, like as I spoke with one of my guests recently, was that this can be a really lonely space to be in. Even if we
Yes.
are networking, even if we have masterminds, it can still be very, very lonely. And that inner critic can easily spiral and start to, take a little bit too much space in our brain. And I know for me, as I have created my programs, my own proprietary processes, and figured out, okay, how can I add more value to this and thinking like you like is this enough, like really should I be somehow doing more,
Right.
and yet it's the feedback, right? And feedback is just information, and you just have to do it, right? It's again like getting out of that perfectionist frame of mind and just going, I'm just going to put this out there and get feedback, and I can always add more
Yeah.
value, or I can
Yeah.
change the price, and we just pivot, we can be
Yeah.
flexible.
Yeah. And it is also about like, going back to the profit one and then going back to some other conversations we've had is it's also about balance, right? So it's be willing to put yourself out there and fail forward and then make adjustments. Like you said, you can always make adjustments. It doesn't have to be a start from scratch every single time. It's, oh no, I've made progress. I learned this. So now I'm going to adjust this a little bit and then I'm going to go here. And it's also about keeping that balance. So keeping space for having a hard line in the sand about what your worth really is and being willing to step into the confidence of supporting that, but then also not letting it run away, get so,
Mm-hmm.
inflated that you're like, oh, well, I can start pushing and not necessarily caring about the
Exactly.
true value, right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, where the real guilt comes in is when when businesses start to creep in there. That's one of the reasons why I think most everybody out there can agree why none of us like corporations, because that's what has happened to them. They
Yeah.
went from being, I've built you, 100 years ago, I built you a product that's meant to last for generations, we hope it serves you well, to we don't actually care if this lasts 2 months. We just want your money. And oh, you're going to pay a subscription for it ongoing without actual added value because we're going to force you into it if you want this at all. And then we're going to make it obsolete in 6 months. So
Exactly.
people are constantly bombarded with that level. So when real quality shows up, they almost don't know what to do with it, which also feeds into the, oh, am I not doing enough? Am I being to this? Am I being to that? Right. So
Yeah.
added
Absolutely.
perspective.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you brought up that contrast in comparison with the corporations, because I think, yeah, people are afraid of what can I become? What
Right.
happens? And that's where, like with both of us, with our clients, is really always checking back in with what are your values, and are you moving in a way and taking action in ways that are aligned with those values, and that those values and that vision that you hold for yourself, your life, your business, both, that those things are your guiding stars, and you are following them so that you don't go, ooh, shiny sparkly over here. And it's you have a very clear guidance system for yourself to know that, no, whatever is happening around me, I'm going to stay true to why I started this in the first place,
Yeah.
and what I want for my life, and the value that I'm putting out to the world is going to be a reflection of, the wealth that I generate, and so that I can be generous, and so that I can be an even greater contributor to the world and leave a greater legacy beyond even the work that I do. So it's all of those things, but always coming back to that vision and values to guide
Mhm.
every action that you take.
Yep.
I love that. And so looking at burnout prevention through a financial lens, What is one mistake you see smart, capable women making that increases stress? And what is a more grounded, sustainable approach that you encourage instead?
Hmm. Okay, so there's two pieces to the well, actually there's three pieces to this. So number one, not being willing to kind of take a leap of faith and actually invest in professionals to help them
Mm,
get to a sustainable point faster than what they will do struggling on their own, which is always a huge leap of faith because they're like, well, what if I don't get there? What if I spend the money and I go backwards and it doesn't actually help me? I mean, that's part of being in business is being willing to take that risk. And there's ways to do due diligence to help mitigate that. But that is probably the number one. If you ask anybody who supports businesses in any capacity, that's going to be the number one answer that they give, right? And because it's
mm-hmm.
a pattern we see all the time, right?
Yeah.
Um, so another one is thinking that they can earn their way out of the problem. If I just
Mm,
make more money, the problems that I'm having right now will go away. That is
mm,
not true. That is not true at all. In fact, when you actually do the math and you really sit down and look at it, that can actually lead you to a more expensive problem and sometimes actually lead you to now be on the radar legally for certain things because you
wow.
don't have systems in place to actually manage the income you're even bringing in, let alone more. And it can actually get you into a deeper, deeper hole. In fact, I've had a couple instances with some businesses that came to me in the last like 6 months saying, I made more money. I don't know where it's going. And by the time I actually got through doing, for lack of a better term, a light level of forensics to figure out what was going on, they thought, oh, I just need to make more money to solve the problem. I'm like, don't, because if you do, you're going to go from not being on the radar of certain things to very much on the radar and not having any way to actually handle it. So let's get these things in place first, fix it, get it stable, and then absolutely let's go rocket, make more income, which you're ready to do because now you'll have the ability to support it and manage it so that the things when you're building a business and you're building income that you don't think about don't creep in and all of a sudden become like a wrench in the cog of the wheel of the engine, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say those are the top two. And there was a third one that went along with that, but my brain just kind of, that
Yeah.
one apparently is not ready to be talked about because it went away.
Well, do you have an example of what might be a more grounded, sustainable approach that you encourage women to pursue instead?
So for the burnout prevention, it would be
Mm-hmm.
again finding one or two professionals that you are willing to partner with and trust and let
Mm-hmm.
them actually guide you to build your fundamentals inside your business. So as far as finances go, like for example, do you have the operations professionals you need? Like, do you have a bookkeeper? Which every business, honestly, in my opinion, from all of the business plans that I've done, a bookkeeper should be your first and best investment because they are going to keep everything clean and accurate. Which then, when you bring in a CPA or you bring in a me or you bring in an attorney, you bring in anybody else, they have everything in a way that I can get that from them and read it quickly without having to go pull teeth trying to get everything that you're like, I don't know where to go get that. I don't even know what that is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so it makes it a lot easier to do business planning when you have that person. So I'd say that's number one. Number two, working with someone like me who can then sit down and look at everything, not just your numbers, but look at everything and say, okay, here's what's going well. You've built this part of your foundation beautifully. Let's keep it. Here's what you're completely missing, like it's not even there. And then here's where you have like the outline, but there's nothing there to like actually support anything. And then giving like a 90-day plan, a 6 month plan, a year plan of like how to fix those things so that by the end of the year, you've got this beautiful foundation that's sustainable. It's helping you, and you can then move forward onto bigger things without having to worry about, well, what if, right?
Right.
So it's answering the what ifs as much as reasonably possible.
Mm-hmm. And you really struck something about getting people on your team because I've said this in social media posts and I will continually say and share the biggest lie that I ever told myself when I started my first business when I was just 24 and I knew absolutely nothing. is that I can do it all myself. I don't need anyone else.
Right.
And oh my gosh, that was by far the biggest lie I've told myself, not just in business, but also in life.
Mhm.
And, as I got wiser and older and everything that goes with that, I was like, who else can I get to help me? And so when we support ourselves with other professionals who we have rapport with, who we have trust, then, they take some of that load off. They can explain things. And also, they get to do their job, so we get to do ours.
Yep.
And one thing I love about your work is how detailed you are. And similarly with my clients is when asking about like what is it that you actually want
Mhm.
and really going into what does that look like? Like
Mhm.
you've asked us to like okay, describe that like in detail. And this is something that I did with Rewire My Brain, and what I teach my clients to do is like really get into experiencing that vision, like
Mhm.
feel it with all of your senses and really put yourself in that place, a because there's a neuroscience component to that,
Yep.
but two, then it helps you get really clear on those things. And you may think that financial planning is just it's like a CPA where you're just looking at numbers. No, because you are looking at all of those what ifs. You are looking at what is it that you want in retirement, and based on where you are now, are you going to make it there the way that you want? And then
Mhm.
if not, like what are you going to do? But the questions that you ask people are so much more in depth and detailed than I think that they would ever expect from anyone in the financial sector at all.
I do get that a lot. I get a lot of people go, oh, I totally can see why this ties into my finances, but I would have never thought that it was relevant until it was asked, right? Until I was made to sit down and actually think about the connection and how it really plays out. And now so many things that weren't clear to them make sense now from
Yeah,
a outcome standpoint, from a behavior standpoint, from all sorts of things. So yeah.
absolutely. And, ladies, like if you have an idea of what you want for your future, for your retirement, how do you want your life to look like when you're 80 years old? Where do you want to be? Who do you want to be with? What does that look like? And if you aren't really sure how to get there from where you are, like this is where working with someone like Leah really comes in, because they can actually help you figure out each step of the way, right? Just as I do with clients of like figuring out, okay, based on what you want to create, what are the action steps that you want to take? And then like maybe we put that a little bit in context and perspective and say like, is that really an attainable goal for you right now? Maybe we need to break that up into smaller chunks, for instance. But it's having somebody to walk beside you with these things so that you get the outcome that you want. Because isn't that what we are in business for? Is to like again like solve a problem. And you know
Right.
what? We don't have to do it all on our own. And isn't that a huge relief? Like that takes a huge ton of stress
Yeah.
off right there.
And I would actually like to submit kind of a little bit of a challenge to the audience too, is this is one of the biggest myths that I also like to bust with clients is the financial industry likes to get everybody to focus on retirement, right? Less than 2% of my clients are actually in a time span where that's really the most relevant conversation to have. Everybody else is far enough away from retirement that yes, we need to talk about retirement. We do need to think about it from a preventative and planning piece, but really we need to talk about what is your next year to 5 years look like? What does your next 10 years look like? Because depending on what we achieve here drives all the rest of that. If I don't focus on you right now at the start of your GPS, if you will, it doesn't matter what we say we want to plan for in retirement because it's not going to necessarily be achievable or sustainable because I don't know what the directions are, right? So I help clients like, yes, we talk about retirement. Don't think I ignore it, but I am more focused on right now to the next 10 years. And I actually talk to clients now. This is a new methodology that I implemented back in 2019 because the industry will talk to you about retirement. They're like, oh, let's think 30, 40, 50 years because you have time and you're going to set it and forget it and all these other crap pieces of advice that they still feed the public, even though it's been proven mathematically to not work. Um, I actually do what I call 7 year tranches. So we actually plan your current conversation in 7 year periods. So we close them out at the end of 7 years. We reassess, what does the industry look like? What do the laws look like? What does the compliance look like? What does your life look like? What's changed? What's still relevant? What's no longer relevant? And what do we need to adjust? If the plan we built 7 years ago still fits and we liked it and we were successful, we can repeat it with minor adjustments. Or we could say, that was great for the last 7 years, but that's not going to work going forward. And we make our adjustments for what is going to work going forward. And that way, number one, people get faster results. They actually get celebratory wins. Like, I have a 7 year plan that's done. It's funded. We're not putting any more money into it. Like, it's just going to sit there and do its thing. And we stack plans on top of each other. So by the time they do get to retirement, we have flexibility. And that's the biggest key with retirement, is flexibility, that the industry is not talking about. Like, they do hint at it, but they don't actually talk about what that means and what it looks like, right? But it's also building flexibility pre-retirement, because that's a bigger dash between now, for most people, between now and retirement, than what they're thinking about after that, right? They're trying to worry about, what am I doing right now? How do I get my work-life balance now? How do I get the math to work for me now, so that I can enjoy things while I'm young, healthy? I've got, I do have time that I can make, that kind of stuff. So that's a big myth that I like to break up with. There's the traditional way of planning, which is very retirement focused. And then there are a few of us in the industry that are like, that's important. And let's focus on right now. Like, what do you want
Yeah.
right now? What's going to
Yeah.
help you tomorrow? What's going to help you in a year? What's going to help you, right? Because that drives everything else.
Exactly. Like if I only worked with clients and said, okay, what do you want in 20 years? And we only, excuse me, focused on that. Like, yeah, we might make some headway, but like you gotta, yeah, look at what is happening and what's important to them now, because that's going to dictate how they're going to move forward toward that
Well,
bigger long
and
term.
also you're leaving a lot of things on the table too, right?
Yeah,
That don't ever get
absolutely.
touched because
Yeah.
they get forgotten about.
And I like that you brought up flexibility because, even when I went through my coaching program with Duke for health and well-being coaching, I think when we think about whether it's health or wellness or anything that we want to change in our lives, is more work I do with clients now, but also finances, we think of so much, as I think of rigidity, and that it is this like, oh, okay, you have to follow this plan, right? And it's this cookie cutter kind of thing, where really when you want to make a change in your life, regardless of what area it is, like you have to have flexibility, because you know what, life happens, circumstances change. I certainly know that, having been disabled for nearly 6 years. Life changes and things. Leah and I both know life can throw you curveballs. We can tell you about
Yep.
our personal stories. But like we have to be adaptable and flexible, and we can still be flexible while working toward our goals.
Yep.
It may change the pace, it may change the focus a little bit,
Yep.
but we have to have flexibility because that's what makes things sustainable.
100%.
Yeah. We move into our last couple questions that I like to ask everybody. So, Leah, what's one practice or mindset that helps you stay grounded when things feel uncertain or overwhelming?
Oof. Okay. That is an interesting question. That's actually one I'm reassessing this year, from what I thought worked in the past versus when I really sat down and looked at it and went, that was more just a noise fluff answer. So I'm looking for the real answer this year. But I would say the biggest practice that I've always stuck to is community. So when things get too loud and when things get too overwhelming and I let fear start creeping in, I realize that is the best time and the most needed time to actually go, for lack of a better term, expose myself to those I actually have a relationship built specifically for that where it's a safe space to do it, and get the objective, real feedback of what's really going on. Because almost every single time I am way over exaggerating in my head what's there versus what's real. And again, because we've all worked on this for so many years to have this type of relationship in the community that I've developed for that, like they actually will feed it back to me in a way that my brain goes, oh, that's new information. I can do something with that, right? Even though it's really the same thing, it's just fed back to me in a different perspective. And then my brain goes, oh, now I know how to solve it. Okay. Now I actually have something I can go do. I feel better. It's kind of like those of us that are, I guess, ADHD or whatever you want to say, they say oftentimes when you're overwhelmed, go clean, because that
Mm,
little micro win then will clear you up to be like, oh, okay, now I can process.
mm-hmm.
Which I do that too, by the way. That is another practice, I guess, that does work is when I get too overwhelmed, that's like my quiet time. I'm like, let me go get some wins by cleaning something, right?
Yeah.
And I would say the relationship piece is the mental cleaning side of that.
Yeah. So it's the importance of community and also giving your brain a chance to look at things differently or to give it a different
Yes.
task so that it's like,
Yep.
oh, I can see things with a different perspective, a cleaner
Yeah.
perspective, mentally and maybe physically.
And I would say too, to that, then there's times where I'll really push myself out of my comfort zone. And that's where I'll go out and be in a very specific mindset, a very humble and receiving mindset. And I'll go out to like networking events, or I'll go to a conference, or I'll go to a webinar or somewhere where I'm going to hear information again in a new way, where I can give my brain an opportunity because I'm in a learning mode to hear it differently and then go, oh, got it. Okay, I'm inspired. Once I'm inspired, we're good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's another practice mindset is use the tools that are around you and that are within reach that help disrupt what's going on up here and reset
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Beautiful. And as we wrap up, what's your biggest takeaway from our conversation today?
Gosh, there's so much. You and I always have such big takeaways every time we get together. So
We do.
that's a hard question to answer. I would say it's the connecting again with the community, with you, with the community, and everybody else out there to really point out you don't have to do it by yourself. In fact, it is actually better to do it with other people that have the same mindset and who all want to move in the same direction. And to just, it takes a village, right? It takes a community. It is not, you're not meant to do the journey by yourself. It's meant to be with people, right? And everybody truly supporting each other. That's really the biggest thing is continuing that conversation and connection.
Yeah. Love that. Connection, community, support. Yeah. I think what stood out for me, because there were so many things, I would say there's two. One was about the perfectionism and how that and the underlying fears around that, and especially money, show up
Mhm.
for women entrepreneurs especially. But I mean, just women, working women. It's just something that's there on a societal level and an opportunity for us to really look at those things internally and to decide I'm not going to subscribe to those things anymore and to choose differently.
Yep.
And also that just the reinforcement of we don't have to do these things alone, and nor should we.
Yep.
And thankfully, there are folks like you who can be a partner, can be a guide, and can just take the guesswork, take the stress, and be that guide that you need. Like we talked about a GPS, like
Yep.
there's Leah the GPS, because yeah, we don't need to do this alone. And
Yep.
that just reinforced that for me.
And actually, you just said something that caught my attention as a takeaway too that I would like to share with the audience is people like you, people like me who come in and help women overcome either their burnout, their mindset, their behavior, whatever. It really comes down to like we focus on people like you and I really focus on finding the truth with that person versus what they are saying they think they want because again, they're playing off of this is what I think I'm supposed to say. This is what I'm supposed to want. And I blow that out day one. I'm like, no, no, no. Like, what do you actually want? Like, if pretenses and expectations and all that were off the table completely, and you could literally be a kid again and build whatever it is that you wanted to build, what would that actually look like? And if it's
Yeah.
realistic, let's do it. If it's not realistic, okay, let's find what's closest to it that we can
Yeah.
actually do and go down that path because then you're truly feeling fulfilled versus If you tell a professional, and actually I would say this is another practice thing, when you tell a professional this is what you want, they're not mind readers and they're going to say, oh, okay. Because they're not going to come into the meeting assuming that you're lying to yourself and therefore them. So they're going to help you build that. You're going to get there, get a milestone, and it's not going to be fulfilling because it's not what you actually wanted. It's just what you thought you were supposed to say, right?
Yeah.
And then that builds in a whole new layer of like resentment or a new fear or a new stress or a new something that could have been very avoided with just being truly and objectively true to yourself. And part of my language, but screw what everybody else thinks and screw what society thinks. Do you, which is why I said
Mm.
seasonal income and nonlinear people end up being like they get places faster because they are forced to already be in that mindset because their stuff is so tight, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now that's a great takeaway as we wrap up here, because it is the do you, but I think what we both do for our clients is that we give them permission and
Yeah.
space to actually voice what they want, which A, they may not have ever been clear on what they want in the first place, and two, they may never have actually verbally expressed it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, ladies, if you're not actually sure what you want, or maybe you've never even given yourself permission, or maybe other people haven't given you permission, these are safe places to do that. So, well, thank you so much, Leah. It was such a pleasure to talk with you today. And I'm
It was
just
wonderful
so
being
grateful
here.
for you sharing all of your wisdom with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So I will take Leah out here. And for those of you who would like to connect with Leah, maybe answer or ask her some questions, all of her links are going to be in the description. So be sure to follow her and to connect with her. And for all of you listening, thank you for being here. If something resonated or opened up for you today, maybe something really clicked, be sure to subscribe and stay connected for more conversations that support your energy, capacity, and leadership. I'll see you in the next episode.